his contribution. Thank you, goodbye. And now it is time for the last presentation before the break, and after the break I will have a debate moderated by Łukasz Sienkiewicz, and now it is time to give the floor to Michał Nowakowski, who will talk about a Badge Plus application, which is a new dimension for digital certification of competences and skills. Good afternoon or good morning. I know Professor Lewicki, who has spoken about the practical applications of micro-credentials, and I would like to focus about how to do it. Because you can talk about threats and opportunities and how we can use micro-credentials in higher education and in accumulation of market qualifications. But the question remains, what will these new solutions be? And because I'm an engineer by profession, I have wondered not how to do it, but with what to do it. And this is what I'm going to discuss today. This is the Odznaka Plus, Badge Plus application, which is being developed by the Institute for Educational Research. And I will talk about practical implications from the point of view of learners, because it is the user who is the most important, and we need to observe how they learn and what credentials they would like to be awarded. So what I focus on is the latest technology in education. I have been doing it for 10 years, and we know that we learn throughout our lives, that education doesn't end at school. But when I asked the question myself a few years ago, the question how to have the recognition of informal learning, because I have spent a few years in Spain, and I have just learned Spanish by immersion, so I have no formal certification of my knowledge. I could just take an exam in order to obtain some certification which will prove the meeting of some requirements, but there is no certificate on the fact that you have been professionally active in Spain in a specific sector or in a specific region or at a specific time. So I cannot have my qualifications recognized. I can also have a certification for my chess or tennis skills, and they can be of importance in the labor market, or they can contribute to personal development, because all the skills we have allow us to meet our goals, which just position us at a certain place in our lives. So I've been wondering about it, and I have come across Open Badge project, which aim was to introduce open badges to Poland. So I started to dig into it, and apparently this is a very interesting standard allowing for documenting individual experiences in a digital way, which will be easy to present in the labor market and not necessarily on the labor market, because these can be various experiences. And then it struck me that we need such a solution in Poland, because this is quite useful, but however, we need some tools to do it. So I started wondering how to do it, and I started talking to people, and we have managed to develop such a tool. So we are at the pilot stage right now, and coming back to the statement that education doesn't stop at school, but we need methods or tools to certify and accumulate our experience of also professional experience, because now it is the time of CV. So whenever you apply for a job, you write a CV, and where you present many lies in them. Majority of people do, probably you don't. So I believe it is not sufficient, and what is very important is the fact that thanks to micro-credentials, you can present more in more detail about a specific person. And you can present the practical implications, because Dr. Lewicki talked about the use of micro-credentials in higher education, which is formal and needs to be organized very well. And what I am talking about, the badges can be used in the labor market. They will not be, it will not serve as a credential, but it will not include quality assurance system, or it will not include workload. However, the labor market will be able to use it as well. Well, what other principles are for these systems? So when we were talking in our team about badges, about the fact that even with Social Security, you have your digital account, you have e-IDs, and so, for example, I love e-Obywatel applications, and still diplomas issued by higher education universities or secondary schools are still paper-based. Do you remember where you have your certificate? Well, in this or that folder. Well, if you have it in folder, yes, you are a lucky one. But there is a fair opportunity that not all of us know where we have our documents. Yes, I have a special folder for it, but it's not very popular because you usually just pile these documents somewhere. Well, maybe the best solution is just to frame your certificates and qualifications and just hang them on the wall, then you know where they are. But going back to the topic, well, we should go digital also in the world of the credentials and certification. This is why we have decided on the open badge system, which is used globally. I have found some research from 2022, but there are 75 million badges that have been issued in this standard, and you have 53 applications that can issue such certifications, such badges. So let us look at the micro-credentials from the point of view of a learner, because the learning process, which can be described in terms of quality assurance modules, the teaching programs, or curriculum, co-curriculum blocks, but this is a process which is quite streamlined. So you have some facts from your life, like attending a lecture or joining an interest club, be it chess playing or squash playing, or you have seen someone playing something and you have been interested in something. So these are interests or associations. Sometimes they are forced, because when you are not interested in a course you attend at the university, you still need to be interested in it. So these all interests and experiences are accumulated over time. And this timeline and the outcomes of this interest accumulate, and as a result you can do something, or you can say something, or you can describe something, or you have some other skill. I use an example of Jimi Hendrix, an excellent guitarist. He couldn't read notes. He knew some chords, but it didn't prevent him from being the best guitarist player in history. So I believe he's one of the best. So he didn't need any education, be it formal, informal, non-formal. Obviously, not everyone is as talented as Jimi Hendrix, but if you accumulate your skills. So, for example, there was a moment in life of Jimi Hendrix that he has never seen a guitar, yeah, but someone has shown him a guitar, and he started to understand different aspects of playing a guitar. So he knew different chords, he knew how to play the notes. So he accumulated his learning outcomes. Well, he didn't need any much encouragement, but some people need some incentive in order not to drop out. So you need sometimes some incentive to say, yes, you are at the right place, you have this or that skill. Obviously, well, if you drive a car, it cannot be the ability to hear to the engine in order to change gears. But if you learn, I don't know. Obviously, driving license is a strictly structured qualification, so you cannot talk about stages of obtaining this qualification. But this qualification is in minority. So when you accumulate your experience, you can certify or recognize any skill. It doesn't necessarily need to be a micro-credential, but it can be used in the learning process. And what is also important, when you accumulate the learning outcomes, when you can play a guitar, or drive a car, or do whatever, or some other things, the formal systems focus on, because we focus on the competency development model. So now we focus on competencies, and once you achieve the competencies, you get a qualification and certification, and it's good, it's right, because it provides information to the market about the achievements of a given person at a given stage of their education.
But it absolutely does not show the full scope of a given person's skills. So in this competence development model, we stop at a point where an individual achieved a certain level, like a master's or other titles. But what happens later? That person, for instance, a teacher, continues their development, and there is no continuity. In private companies, there is some continuity. For instance, IBM has a class of open badges. It's for special employees who share their knowledge with younger colleagues in the IT sector, and they try to act as trendsetters and introduce new solutions. They teach young employees, but most companies don't have that. So the Chinese say 10,000 hours are enough to become a champion, an expert in one profession. It's probably true, but we can actually keep developing after graduating or after receiving a certain level or title. We should keep gaining certifications or credentials because we keep learning. And all I want to mention is that maybe a way to create personalized education, because market qualifications belong to us, but they are actually not ours. We have certain skills, certain knowledge, certain competencies, and we want to be acknowledged. We need to be recognized that we have a certain level. In case of micro-credentials, we rely on our experience that we want to show to someone, for instance, in a digital way. we demonstrate who we are, what we have done, what we used to do. So it's somewhat different. Of course, if in case of a driving license, it's clear what it stands for. You have a permit to use a vehicle, a motor vehicle on public roads. But in case of micro-credentials, the certifications testifies that you have something unique, not something that everybody else has. And that solution that micro-credential will be developing, there are many different schools, for instance, in homeschooling systems, they conduct various classes for their students. We also cooperate with one such high school where micro-credentials are used in a very effective way. But let me say a few words about the standard. In 2013, a Mozilla Foundation in the States, probably everybody knows it, but also Hashtag Foundation and some other foundations, created a competition and started thinking how to popularize skills in the 21st century. They decided that these skills need to be confirmed or verified digitally, and the life goes fast, and these skills are not acquired in a formal education system, so we will not have enough potential to create formalized organizations, but we should be able to place everything in one spot. And an idea was appeared that it should be represented in graphic form. So we try to use graphics and to give symbols certain meanings. It's quite frequent that certain mark confirms or conveys certain information about an individual. And this is how the system of badges was created. It referred to scouting badges. So now everybody says, okay, we know the scouting badges. Yeah, it's pointless. Okay, you have a right to say it's pointless, but in fact, it's very meaningful. I have never been a scout myself, but I started to think about it, and I understood it is meaningful because every badge scouts get is standardized. You need to fulfill a certain range of criteria. It doesn't matter what the subject is, and if you fulfill the criteria, you get the badge, and you know up front what the criteria are. If you fulfill the criteria, you get a badge, and this is how this is the kind of logic that the badge program creators followed. Also, for machines to communicate with one another, JSON data format was used, and that allows for full data transfer across platforms. The information is coded as metadata of graphics in a simple graphic file. The metadata is coded using a tool, which is a badge, and what kind of metadata? I mean, it's the name of the badge, and now we need to refer to some history. Depending on the area, for instance, if it's a badge from the labor market, or if it's a badge from a vocational school, or a gamification badge, an internal company badge, or some serious badge which attests getting some formal market qualification. So badges are all different. Some are more formal, some are more informal. But we need to give badges names, and that's very important, so that people who hold the badge need to be proud of it. This is a crucial change in the paradigm. We do not certify what you know, because this is the standard, but we certify it in such way that you want to show it to others, because this way you will also show others that we do cool things. Another thing which is a very important element is who issued a badge. So that's a company who commits to comply with certification standards. So in this model, I know you, I'm a company who deals with, let's say, cutting dog fur, and I certify, I trained you in this specific category as an expert in that category. So it has to be a reliable institution, and Jacek also mentioned this. It cannot be a higher school of cooking, let's say, in some small town. No, it has to be a serious institution specializing in a specific field. It has to be professional in some specific area, and then they will be able to verify the credentials. It can be a school of higher education, it can be a commercial or non-commercial institution of labor market, it can be a school, no problem. In our pilot project we cooperate with schools as well. So this is the issuing authority. There is always one issuing authority responsible for verifying if the requirements have been complied with. And there is a lot of room for cooperation. We, for instance, in communication with V8 Academy, we issue Orlen badges. Orlen only gave us the logo and they support the program, but they do not verify the quality and the fulfillment of requirements. And another aspect is a holder. There is always one issuer, but there is always one holder, one recipient. There are plans to give badges to organizations, but this is a very early stage. It may be a good idea, but sometime in the future. And then what we need is the description of a badge. So we need to include a description of what a given credential verification is given for. So we are able to include some personal feedback. For instance, that was the best student in their academic year, or somebody who had outstanding achievements. We can include that description. It's an opinion. It's possible. The issuer, when giving a badge or using a micro-credential, and I use it consciously, I know not every micro-credential will be issued in such form. And this form of micro-credential will not always comply with the Council recommendations. We'll see how it works in the future. But I have the privilege of coordinating a project run by the Ministry of Funds, and we are thinking of how to certify or verify skills in order to make it reliable. So there is a full micro-credential project pending. But let's go back to the badge. We can include a badge description which describes the relationship between the issuer and the holder. The description can describe who that person is, what positions they may take. Of course, these badges are digital, and somebody who sees the badge will be able to see what we write. So there is some limitation of what we can put in. And of course, companies will not attest untrue and will not say something silly, which would not be covered by facts, because somebody eventually will be able to verify it. In the States, lots of people take pride in badges that they received, in IBM, in Microsoft, so you can be certain other people will see your badge. And one element assuring quality of badges are the awarding criteria, and these need to be extremely strict. We cannot just say, oh, that individual is a good, kind, empathic person. No, it has to be more specific. That person passed a specific exam on a level of 30% or 70%. 30% probably is not even a pass. But let's say the person participated in 15 different courses provided by a specific organizer, and they have a driving license, they have 1.70 meters or 5.6 feet tall. we can write any facts so that and the recipient, the person who sees a badge, will be able to check to see that the attested information is true. Another thing that a badge needs to have is an issuing date and also tags that can be used to search for different properties of the badge. And there is also something cool that we have. I intentionally use the word cool. We can add evidence that certain criteria was fulfilled. Digital evidence, any form of digital evidence that we can find. So, if somebody holds a badge, they are good at public appearances, we can attach a recording of their performance. If somebody claims they have competences of using business English, they may attach a 5-minute recording of them using business English during a presentation or anything. What can be added is links to your projects or links to your portfolio. For instance, if you're a programmer or if you're a graphic designer, if you're a manager, you can mention that you can list the projects that you've been involved in, if possible, or not as frequently. Okay, evidence, first of all, to start with, evidence is not compulsory for a badge to be valid, but they can be attached. We can also set an expiry date if you wish. And if you want to add other attributes, you can also add them. Our application allows new attributes to be added. And Konrad Romaniuk, active in Europass, he's now in Brussels. And in the Europass sector, there's a European learning model developed. It has 480 different attributes because it needs to be adapted to all possible branches and areas. So it's a very broad understanding of what studying, of what learning is, and how learning outcomes can be certified. So open badges are also an option to be used here. What is unique is that every badge has a unique URL and it can be sent to anyone without any logging. The recipient is able to see the badge right away and see the content. They can click the evidence or click and open and find information about the issuing institution. These badges are issued by many different organizations. Okay, I'm not sure you can see the logos on my screen. For instance, on top we have Amazon, to the right Siemens, CSR for youth, to demonstrate there is curiosity or renewable energy badges, Microsoft, IBM. A whole range of badges are now used globally. And I will accelerate my presentation even more. So, what is the infrastructure we have already? We already have an application which operates the standard of open badges. Only selected institutions can join and sign an agreement with us. Later on, also, other institutions will be able to join us, but they will be selected in an objective way. Right now, we cooperate with 40 entities, and I will show their logos in a moment. So there is an application which works on a given standard, and it enables creating classes of badges for the issuing companies. So there is us, who we stand for the quality, we try to maintain the application. We have the issuers. Issuers are schools of higher education, lower level schools, commercial entities, institutions, foundations, any organization that conducts any form of activity. And then we have holders. Holders can collect their badges in the system. They can display them in social media. They can create their portfolios. They can make them accessible on the web. And so, on one hand, we have a person who signs an agreement and issues badges, and then they distribute their badges to everybody who meets their criteria. The system, the Badge Plus system, we call it a system, but maybe in the future we'll create a whole family of applications, and additionally this will be extended by legal solutions and by practical solutions, for instance, how to ensure credibility, what the graphics should be. So we are now compiling best practices, and we try to provide them to our partners. So it is an application with accompanying elements which create a full ecosystem of micro-credentials or badge system in Poland. We have a mobile application for individual users, so anybody who wants to present their badges or form their portfolios or form their career path, they can use the mobile application. I present some options. You can read them. Actually, any skill, including soft skills, can be confirmed. For instance, if you manage a team, you are able to confirm that your team member was involved in 5 different projects, and so probably such person will have some skills. There's never certainty, but also when your child brings a good grade from school, that their good grade in a small town is equivalent to a good grade received in Warsaw. Okay, my version of the presentation does not have an example, but I want to show you we have a possibility to create a portfolio. Each user may create their own link with their own site where they can add different kinds of evidence, for instance, from their YouTube channel. They can collect all their badges, they can add graphic designs, and they can add description, and they can create one link and then use the link to send it. So you no longer need to generate PDF files with your CV, and because we believe it's a better solution to find a person with the right qualifications that are verified. So what you see now is a list of is a range of entities that take part in the pilot project, which is Kodilla, or also many sports associations, or a Polish association of dietitians. We also have a foundation which propagates or popularizes a stream approach. We have Technical University of Pole, Krakow, Technical University of Łódź from the very beginning, and a whole range of various different companies like Revas, a company that does great business simulations. We also have a center for mediation. So great, like peer mediation. We have. I don't even have time to mention all the possibilities. For instance, here, in the top part, you can see a badge issued together with Orlen Oil at Championships of Mechanics. Here there is a badge for a 2-day workshop in robotics, issued in cooperation with Pomorska Special Economic Zone. And here the second to the right, this is the badge given to peer mediators. And top right, we have a Java developer badge, which is a very concrete badge. It follows a path of 20 badges. So this is the supreme badge awarded after receiving 20 other badges. And my favorite badge, the red one in the center to the right, we have a badge for participating in Chinese language courses, and you can see that this is level 2 out of 4. The little circles on top of the badge indicate the level. Very interesting badges are issued in the statistics program in the courses in psychology. There is a badge for students who attend lectures. Of course, it does not have, it is not relevant for in the area of formal micro-credentials, but it may be motivating, and it does motivate people. We actually conduct certain studies to confirm that. Well, I'm sorry for taking too long. Thank you, that's all from me. Michał, this presentation was very interesting. Now it's time for a coffee break, and we'll be back at 20 to 1. So the next panelists will be Katarzyna Olszewska, Dorota Wrzesińska, Katarzyna Ćwiąkała, and the moderator will be Łukasz Sienkiewicz. Now 15 minutes of break, and before we proceed to the last session today, and this will be a debate.